Mhm. Geography Now Norway.
It's time to learn about the beautiful fjordalands of Norway.
Usually, a lot of times on this channel, we started with Geography Now as our first introduction video for the country, but not Norway.
I think our first one for Norway was the dang. Oh no, we did top 10 Norway, and then we did the police one because someone suggested that. So if you guys want to suggest whatever video to check out next, you can, because we don't know what else we'll check out from Norway.
But let's jump right into it and learn a bunch about Norway.
It's a country everyone has kind of heard about, something about snow,
I've heard
ice,
of it.
Vikings, skiing, I think trolls. But Norway is also a land of highly compounded history, tradition, postmodernism, and above all, landscape and people. And black metal! Yes, Keith is really excited for this episode.
It's time to learn geography.
It's been so long since we watched one of these.
It's been a
Under
long,
those
long
barbs,
time.
we've done Denmark,
What's up,
Finland,
barbs?
Iceland, and now the fourth Nordic sister, Norway. Now, in the Nordic countries, Norway would kind of be like the one that everyone either tries to call their best friend or date. She smiles at the ground, pulls her hair behind her ear, and looks up with those sky blue doe eyes that sparkle and says, "Welcome to Norway."
Very sparkly.
Norway plays a huge role in what it means to be Northern European. And when you look at it on the map, you'll
Oh,
see that it's
that's
fascinating
very
how well they
interesting
developed the civil
architecture.
infrastructure from a rugged, half-frozen peninsula. Oh, and there's a town called Hell.
First of all, the
Oh,
country,
God.
which kind of looks like the shape of a spoon, is located in northern Europe in the region
Kind
known
of,
as Sca-
kind of like a spoon.
I see it more as like a.
A sperm cell.
It does have a spermular shape.
Sorry, Norwegians, you're all in a sperm cell.
Scandinavia, just above the North Sea, bordering mostly Sweden to the east, Finland in the far north, and even a small sliver of Russia at the very end. This effectively means that Norway goes even further east than Finland and gets the entire Arctic coast from their neighbors, sharing the Barents Sea with Russia. Apart from
Did you guys know that there's only one country between Norway and North Korea?
Oh,
that, Norway has some
Russia.
overseas territories as well, two of which are in the Arctic Circle.
Why didn't you say the same thing
Svalbard
about Iceland?
archipelago with only about
Yeah,
3,000
sorry.
people,
I mean,
mostly in the
ocean.
largest town, Longyearbyen, and the uninhabited Jan Mayen Island, which was actually kind of
Be
traded with the
interesting
UK
to go to
for these
Svalbard.
islands and Canada.
That's been on my
in,
bucket
like
list, is
1930 when
Svalbard.
Canada was still British. Weird trade-off, but okay. After that, they have two dependent territories, the Antarctic areas of Peter I Island and Bouvet Island, way
They got some
down
great
south,
spots in
neither of which are
Antarctica.
permanently inhabited, and they also claim a portion of Antarctica known as Queen Maud Land. Going back to the mainland, though, the country is currently, as of 2019, divided into 17 counties, or fylker, plus the unincorporated area of Svalbard, which, by the way, holds the northernmost permanently inhabited settlement in the world, with a population around 40 in the winter and 120 in the summer. The thing is, in 2020,
Wow.
the country will merge some of these counties into 11 regions. Already, North and South Trondelag have merged, and the final result in 2020 will look like this. The country's largest city and capital is Oslo, located in the southeast, which also holds the largest airport, Oslo Lufthavn International, as well as Oslo shipping port, the busiest shipping port in the country. A skip to the west, you find the
Isn't that
second
crazy that
largest
the
city,
busiest
Oslo
shipping port is
the
like-
busiest.
Yeah, look at how.
So inland.
Yeah, it's not like one of those where you just pull up to the coast. You gotta really go through.
Shipping port in the country. A skip to the west, you find the second largest city, Bergen, with of course the second largest airport, Bergen International. It is
Well,
said
that's
that
another
almost
looking
around
airport.
80% of the country lives within 10 kilometers of the ocean, and despite the rugged mountainous terrain, the nation has an extensive network of roads, bridges, and trains that cross virtually every region of the nation, including the Lærdal Tunnel, the world's longest road tunnel that stretches 24 kilometers long, cutting through a
24?
mountain, and also the famous Atlantic Road that hops from island to island in the Møre og Romsdal County.
Now,
It's insane, like the infrastructure of Norway. So like they're just straight mountains. They're just the whole country of mountains, and they still have tunnels that can get you through anywhere, roads, trains,
Impressive.
everything.
Very impressive.
what's really fascinating is that Norway kind of went from this to this. And for a nation that has never surpassed
Wow.
5.5 million in population, it's pretty impressive. How did this happen, though? Well, as the legend goes, in the 60s, Denmark was like,
Hey, Norway, you are just the best. I love you, man, and you know, just to prove it, I'm gonna give you all this ocean water stuff.
Wow, really?
Yeah, just take it.
Thanks. Whoa,
Oil.
there's like a ton of oil here. Thanks, Denmark.
actually, it was the Geneva Convention like 10 years prior to that, but that story's kind of boring. Now, as you can clearly tell, Norway has lots of access to the ocean.
Due to all the serrated inlets and fjords, plus islands, they have the seventh largest coastline in the world. This also means that roads and bridges can only take you so far, and in order to get around the Norway's west coast, you'll see a lot, and I mean a lot of ferries and ships. And what's cool is that, like some of their neighbors, Norway has a free roaming law, in which you can pretty much camp out anywhere in nature as long as it is not on on private property. We all know
That's
some
cool.
towns in Norway are situated in the most picturesque locations. Some, like this town, have no direct sunlight for 6 months because of the mountains, so they built giant mirrors to illuminate them. Fun fact,
That's
Longyearbyen is known for
crazy.
being
That's
both the
insane.
brightest and darkest place on Earth. Because of its location on the Arctic Circle, it gets 110 continuous days of no sunshine and 95 days of no night. Also, they have an emergency seed bank with over 1 million specimens built into the side of a mountain in case of the apocalypse and all plant life dies out on Earth. Also, technically, it's illegal
Wow.
to die in Svalbard. Because of the permafrost, bodies do not decompose, so you must either ship out your body or cremate it.
Not sure how to segue
Oh.
out of that, but let's talk about cool places. Now, I asked some of you guys in Norwegian Geography what some of the top places to visit in Norway are, and here are some of the suggestions you gave. Nordkapp, the Viking Ship Museum, Nidaros Cathedral, the Dock of Bergen, the King's Castle, Alta's Igloo Hotel, Frogner Park, and
Igloo
Vigeland
Hotel?
Sculpture Park. Try to find the one with the dude fighting the babies. This fortress,
heck?
this Iron Age farm, the world's largest moose sculpture, this
Heck
whaling
yeah.
museum
That's bigger than I
fortress,
thought it
this
was
Iron
initially. I
Age
thought it was
farm,
pretty
the
small,
world's
but like it's like halfway up those trees.
They need a person per scale.
Yeah.
largest moose sculpture, this whaling museum, the Roald Amundsen and Edward Munch monuments and grave, the Kontiki Museum, the Polaria Aquarium, the Ager Viking style brewery, the Three Swords Monument. So many traditional stave churches,
that's
but this
cool.
one is probably the most famous one. I mean, there's like a billion rocks named after body parts of trolls. There's that weird boulder jammed between two cliffs, a mountain with a hole in it so it looks like it got
Oh,
shot by
I've
a
never seen that
gun.
one.
So
Me
many
neither.
ice caves, the world's strongest whirlpool, so many
Jump
fjords
in.
like Geirangerfjord, Nordfjord, Hardangerfjord,
Wow.
Trollfjord, Harrisonfjord. They were even supposed to give
Nice.
Finland the peak of Mount Halti for their 100th birthday, but then it was kind of like,
Happy 100th birthday, Finland!
Thanks, Norway. So I heard that you're thinking of finally giving me the peak to my tallest mountain, right?
Oh yeah, sure, why not?
Awesome. Well, then let me have it.
Oh, see, there's this thing in my constitution called Article 1, which states that the Kingdom of Norway is indivisible, so here's a taco.
yeah, Norwegians actually really love tacos, which makes the perfect opportunity to transition into.
Food.
Now, if you
I
know
guess
anything
not
about
food.
Norway, you'll know this one word: fjords, fjords, fjords. The word is even Norwegian, and it's interesting how it became that way.
Basically, like many other areas in the north, the country is a post-glacial peninsula with over 50,000 islands that at one point was completely covered in ice. Over time, the ice melted, eroding the rock beneath, creating the incredibly indented coastline of steep, jagged cliffs and fjords. Of the coast, the largest and deepest fjord is Sognefjord, and it is the third largest in the world, extending over 200 kilometers inland.
That's
This
crazy.
means that much of the country is divided into regions of
What's
choppy
the
fjord
largest in
stuff
the
to the
world?
west and the connected hilly and valley stuff to the south and southeast. Everything pretty much falls either within the alpine boreal climate or further up north, Arctic. Keep in mind that due to Svalbard and Jan Mayen, the Norwegian Economic Zone extends to the majority of the Norwegian Sea and much of the Barents, as well as the North Sea to the south. This is called the NCS, or
Wow,
Norwegian
it gets
Continental
really over
Shelf.
there next to Iceland.
Yeah, they get quite the sea reach here.
Dang.
Here, the largest deposit of underwater oil is found that supplies Norway with much of its wealth. A skip to the east, you find the largest lake, Lake Mjøsa, which is just parallel to the longest river in the country, the Glomma, which drains all the way into the North Sea in the south and has a drainage basin that covers about 13% of the country's land. A little skip to the west, in the center, you find the longest and most dominant mountain chain, the Scandinavian Mountains, where you can find the tallest peak, Galdhøpiggen, which is also the tallest in all of the Nordics. If we are discussing the overseas territories, then Svalbard is pretty much an Arctic archipelago of glaciers, this one being the largest in all of Europe, and the rest are mostly just cold valleys. Jan Mayen Island is the only place with an active volcano in Norway. The Berenberg Peak last erupted in 1980. Otherwise, if we skip all the way south to the Antarctic, Bouvet and Peter I Islands are dormant volcanic islands, Bouvet considered the most remote island in the world, and both of which are nearly completely covered in ice and only
Literally just like a big ice cube floating in the ocean.
Those are some banger islands right there. Just if I saw that, I don't know if I'd necessarily want to claim that.
Come on. If we're playing Civ 6
True.
and you saw that island, you wouldn't put a little civilization on
It
it?
wouldn't even have dang food on it for the resource. I'd have to like build a granary right away.
That is so interesting to have those. Hey, maybe in 200 years they'll melt and
Yeah.
then there'll be oil.
Yeah, there might be.
And hopefully the world is not dependent on oil in 200 years. or we might all be dead.
Inhabited by seals and birds.
Now, keep in mind about the oil thing though, although they export lots of it, gas is actually still super expensive. According to globalpetrolprices.com, as of 2019, it is just over 17.2 krone per liter,
Oof.
making it one of the most expensive places to get gas
2019.
in the world.
Wow, I can't imagine what it is now.
Talk about it.
This is partially because in 1990, they initiated the Government Pension Fund Global. This is a national wealth fund run by the government to subsidize pensions when oil dependence runs dry. Now, Norway has lots of natural resources and
So, like, they took their oil and they did something good with it for the citizens?
I'm surprised America didn't come over and show them what real freedom is.
Oh!
clever
You're
ways
lucky,
of managing
Norway.
them. Making
Yeah, Iraq was not so lucky.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Venezuela,
Oof,
or
oof.
Iran, or a lot of those countries.
them somewhat of a paragon for development few other nations can compare with.
Challenge accepted.
But for what it's worth, they have a unique system locked and loaded. And now it is time for my triple shot of espresso break. Usually this is the part where Noah comes in, but Noah is out of town. So let's give this to Keith.
Now, everyone knows that Norway is quite a prosperous nation. But just how prosperous is it? Let's just put it this way. They export more than they import, and not just petroleum products. Fish alone makes up about 10% of their exports, and they are the highest exporter of salmon out of any other country
Yummy.
in the world.
I just love Voss water. It's expensive and it's Norwegian, so
Voss
you know
is
it probably
Norwegian? I
came
didn't know
from
that,
like
actually.
a mystical glacier.
Comes
or
from the
something.
glaciers.
Yeah, no, that's basically just our tap water. I wash my dishes with that stuff every day.
But it's expensive and Norwegian.
And you fell for it.
Ha! Y'all just got tricked.
Otherwise, the
Nice.
majority of the energy in Norway comes from hydroelectric power.
Wow.
Norway became one of the first countries to adopt a carbon tax back in 1991. Although cutting down
Dang,
trees is still
1991.
done on a smaller scale, they were the first country to ban deforestation. They have
Wow.
Europe's largest herd
Oh,
of
isn't it
reindeer.
crazy
They
that
have-
Norway did all this stuff in the 90s and the US is still going backwards on that stuff
They're
in
literally
2025?
they're taking them away slowly.
Puffins? They got puffins?
We saw puffins in Iceland.
We did.
Lots of birds like puffins, whales, and orcas love swimming off the coast. In the Arctic, you can find polar bears and walruses. And now, food. Norwegian food is known for being either really nice, warm, and cozy, or straight up disgusting. They love their fish. You have some interesting fish dishes like lutefisk and rockfisk. Some other dishes include things like various types of porridge, pickled herring, kumla, reindeer made in various ways, meatballs in brown sauce, krumkake, brown cheese, these Christmas
cheese.
dishes,
Sweet.
and the national dish, fårikål. However, if you ask in these Christmas
National
dishes,
dish?
and the national dish, fårikål.
Cabbage and sheep. And lettuce, vegetable only tacos.
Is that a radish in there or
It
something?
looks like.
However, if you ask a Norwegian, they might tell you the new national dish of Norway is tacos. They might have
That's
some
interesting.
questionable ingredients on the table for you to add, like mayonnaise or cucumbers. And I mean, come on, Mexico, even you break your own rules all the time and mix things up in your own country. So let the Norwegians have their fun. And speaking of Norwegians, have fun.
Oh, and speaking of Norwegians having fun.
Oh, and speaking of Norwegians having fun,
Thank you, Keith. Norwegians have a saying, they are born with skis. The word even comes from the ancient Norse word skith, which means split wood. If there was any kind of apex cold winter type of people on Earth, Norwegians would take the gold. And they literally do take the gold. Like, they have more Winter Olympics gold medals than any other country. First of all, the
Wow.
country has about 5.3 million people, and as of 2018, has the highest human development index out of any country in
Nice.
the world.
Seems like it's a pretty good thing to have the highest community development
Are you
index.
sure? America always tells me having the highest GDP is the best.
True. And back-to-back World War champs.
That's sarcasm, by
Sarcasm,
the way.
yeah, we don't care about that.
No.
Obviously, HDI would be a good metric to base your country off
Not
of.
just GDP, which, you
And-
know, all the rich people, they contribute to that.
Maybe we shouldn't be running countries like businesses because there's more to that. In the
That's why Donald Trump's in there to run the country like a business.
he's a businessman.
84% the country is made up primarily of people that identify as ethnically Norwegian, including about 60,000 indigenous Sami people. About 8.3% of the population is other European descent, mostly Western Europe, and the the remaining population is made up of other people groups from outside of Europe, from various regions of Africa, Asia, mostly from countries like Pakistan, Somalia, Morocco, Iraq,
We're from
and
Minnesota.
Kurdish people.
Minnesota
They
has
use
a
the
lot of
Norwegian
Somalis.
krone as their currency. They use the types C and F plug outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road. Interesting to note that they are not part of the EU, but part of the European Economic Area and Free Trade Association. In fact, Norway is a kingdom, currently under the headship of King Harald V. However, his role is mostly representative and ceremonial. His executive powers are limited, and most government is ruled by the parliament. Essentially, though, although some
It's still
would
weird
argue
to me that
Vikings
so
kinda
many
started
like
in-
European countries still have like kings and queens and stuff.
And like a lot of them at this point, they're like, oh, you guys won't like do anything really. You're just kind of like there for things.
But you guys are still super rich.
Yeah.
And you get all your generational wealth.
Yeah.
Denmark, it really kicked off in Norway. Norwegian Vikings did kind of all the exploring and colonizing and raiding and killing, Viking stuff. And no, they did not wear helmets with horns. Language-wise, Norway actually has two official languages, Norwegian and Sami, the language of the minority northern indigenous peoples that have lived in the frigid regions for millennia. The Norwegian language, however, is kind of confusing though, because it kind of has two different writing systems that everybody must learn in school, Nynorsk and Bokmål. What exactly are they? Well, it kind of goes like this.
Hey, we've been in a union with the Danish for centuries and now they are gone. We can speak our own language freely.
Woohoo! But we've been writing our language in the Danish style for so long. I mean, what do? Do we change it?
Hi, I'm Ivo Olsen, and I say yes. I'm going to listen to all the dialects of Norwegian and come up with a weird fusion thing that can work for everyone. I'll call it Nynorsk. We can teach it in schools and everyone can be free of Danish influence. And today, the Danish-style Bokmål is still used by about 85% of the population.
Oh, nice.
The word ha can mean almost anything in Norway. For example, ha. 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 Speaking of which, like many of their other neighbors, Norwegians have 13 years of school, graduating at age 19. And when Norwegians are just about ready to take their final exams, they go on a 3-week party called Russ. And just look it up. Norway has lots of different dialects. Here are some of you guys, the Norwegian geography peeps, explaining.
På standardnorsk ville jeg sagt hvordan, men I Ålesundsområdet ville jeg sagt hvordan.
Hey, my name is Talina. In standard Norwegian, you might say våres, but in Egersund area, you say okkas.
In the west, you could say gysende løyer da, and in the north, maybe hvor artig.
In Oslo, you would say something along the lines of det ikke lett, skjønner du. Trøndelag County, det ikke lett sjø.
So in standard Norwegian, you would say søppel, but in Bergen, we say boss.
Thank you. Otherwise, there are so many other
Completely
things you
different
guys,
words.
the Norwegian geography peeps, wanted us to talk about in terms of your culture. And here is Random Hannah with culture stuff.
Norway is a land loaded with tradition and folklore. Many of you have already heard of things like trolls and elves, but there's also scary
course.
beings like the Huldra, Nattmar,
Oh.
and the Nuken. Pretty much all Norwegians are outdoorsy people. Hiking and cross-country skiing are national pastimes, hands down. Almost everyone owns some kind of Mari sweater, made of wool with traditional patterns knitted onto the upper parts, usually in the national colors of red, white, and blue. Many Norwegians own small cabins in the woods, and they actually like to brag about how bad their cabins can be. As in how technologically disconnected they are, with the least amenities. No
Interesting.
Wi-Fi, no electricity, no plumbing. You're hardcore. Speaking of bragging, in Norway, it's considered super cool to come back from vacation and show off your tan, because it's kind of hard to get a tan in Norway. The Nobel Peace Prize is also awarded in Oslo every year. In Norway, everyone's income and wealth is on public record, mostly. But for what it's worth, the nation does this to help prevent tax evasion.
Tax evasion, interesting. So in the U.S., there's this weird stigma around sharing how much you make. And it's probably in other countries too, but it's like a really it's a thing that like people are kind of like realizing now. It's like, oh, maybe it's just because our employers don't want us to know
How much
that-
we're getting ripped off.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're paying this person more than this person. They don't want the fighting. They don't want to have to pay everyone the same amount.
It all comes down to the dang business owners trying to get as much money as possible.
Yeah, and apparently Norway does it for tax evasion reasons.
The only people that you could see how much they make would be if they worked for a government. If they had a government job, then you could probably find basically anybody's.
Yeah, I think that's all public record, right?
Yeah, it is, I think.
Finally, we cannot
Maybe not some people. You never know.
Their salary is there, but how much they make off of insider trading might not be there.
Or how much they make from random meme coins that they create.
skip the bunnads. These are traditional costumes of Norway that come in so many different varieties based on the region and town you are from. They are mostly worn for special occasions, especially for May 17th, the country's national day, where they march to the castle in Oslo.
Yeah. All right, get out of here. here. I want to talk about music. Traditionally, Norwegians have their own regional folk music and dances called bugdedans. Traditional instruments include things like dulcimers, goat horn, willow flute. The traditional folk music eventually found a way to fuse with one of the most popular genres of Norway today, metal, or specifically Norwegian folk metal. Not only that, but black metal was started supposedly in Norway, and it has since been a domineering genre many people have been playing for decades. That's it for me.
The hair tutorial.
Anyway, we gotta move on. History. In the quickest way I can put it, Viking Age. This dude unites Norway into one kingdom. Vikings invade and take over a ton of other places like England. Christianity, Old Kingdom, Black Plague, Union of Kalmar. Denmark takes over. Lutheranism. Sweden takes over. Constitution established. First wave of immigrants to America. They finally leave Sweden. World War I, neutral. Women's suffrage. World War II, neutral again, but Germany doesn't care. Joins NATO and European Free Trade Association. Oil boom. They vote and reject EU membership. Host the Winter Olympics in Lillehammer. Largest underwater gas pipeline in the world opened. Oslo grows and more immigrants come in. And here we are today. I asked you Norwegian geography peeps for some notable people from Norway or of Norwegian descent, and here are some of the ones you suggested we put in this video. Eric the Red, so many past Vikings and kings, blah blah blah. Edvard Grieg, Edvard Munch, these riders, these cross-country skiers, Roald Amundsen, Magnus Carlsen, Max Magnus, Thor Heyerdahl, Fridtjof Nansen, so many musicians like these people, as well as actors like these
Torben!
people.
Yeah! The wildlings.
Magnus Carlsen, these people,
Where
as
is
well
he?
as
Wow, look at that guy.
He's got a very luscious beard.
He does.
actors like these people, and of course the royal family.
So we knew
though,
two
did you guys
people?
watch the movie
We knew Magnus Carlsen, and I haven't watched a single thing from him ever, just heard of him on Twitch, and Torben, which is epic character.
He's from Game of Thrones, obviously, but what else is he even in?
He is
I feel like I saw him on one other thing, maybe.
He is the what's it called? The like sponsor, like the guy that's on the ads for Days Inn hotels.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
like
so
the company
random.
of that, whatever that company is.
That's so random.
I remember when Game of Thrones was going, I'd be like, that's Torben, what the heck? And he was on the dang hotel poster.
Game of Thrones made so many careers.
It did.
Tiki, it's pretty good. I mean, his migration theory was still kind of mostly wrong, but hey, you did a cool thing, man. And that's the thing about Norwegians. They're so globally intrepid. They reach out to the far corners. And with that, they've also made a lot of friends. Which brings us to...
Friend zone.
Now, Norwegians are known for being very level-headed and nice, but they do know who they support and stand by no matter what. First of all, Switzerland is kind of like their weird alternate parallel universe twin that shares a lot in common with them. They both are not part of the EU. They both are very financially stable, yet expensive to live in. They both have mountains and snow, and they both have similar values in general affairs. They get along pretty well and enjoy sharing the ski stories. The UK is a very close friend, especially Scotland, due to their shared Viking history. They even give them a Christmas tree every year to say thanks for helping in World War II, when their king and government were taken in from exile as the Germans tried to invade. Nepal has close ties. As another mountain nation, they've taken much interest and sent much aid to their programs. High-profile politicians have visited in the past, like their Minister of Environmental Development, Erik Solheim, and the Prime Minister of Nepal visited Norway as well. For the USA, they have a very close connection, not only in diplomacy, government, and business, but specifically to the diaspora living in the USA, and specifically the state of Minnesota. Nearly a million Norwegian Americans
that's
live-
where we from!
We haven't done a deep enough ancestry test, but I'm sure we're a little bit Norwegian.
Definitely.
In this one state alone, the USA holds more people of Norway.
so
Nearly a million Norwegian Americans live in this one.
800,000, and the population of Minnesota is like 5
Million, yeah.
So
Whoa!
that's
And Sweden has a big group in Minnesota as well.
Minnesota's basically
Scandinavia and Germany.
yeah, Germany, and a little bit of Poland too.
Probably Poland, yeah. Dang, that's interesting. And Somalia.
Yeah, Somalia's in there too, and Hmong.
One state alone. The USA holds more people of Norwegian heritage than any other country outside of Norway, with almost as many as there are in Norway. They even have a game show called Alt for Norge, in which Norwegian Americans see the homeland of their ancestors. They cry and act way too dramatic, which is entertaining. The winner gets to meet their Norwegian relatives, and the losers get a book telling them information, but they don't get to meet their relatives, which is kind of messed up, but it's a game show. What do you expect? Anyway, when it comes to their best friends, pretty much what I've heard is a mix between all the Nordics, but specifically Iceland, Denmark, and
Sweden. Iceland is like their party friend they love to go on adventures with. They're also kind of like the preserved Norse nation that their ancestors colonized, which holds a dear spot in their hearts. Today they have a defense agreement that allows the Norwegian Air Force to survey and patrol the Icelandic airspace as well. Denmark and Norway, however, are always kind of fighting for Norway's affection. Both these nations in the past have fought each other and ruled over Norway under separate kingdoms. All three countries were at one point part of the Kalmar Union. They can relatively understand each other when they talk. Swedish is closer to Norwegian though. They are all part of NATO, the Council of Europe, and many people from each of these nations end up marrying and having families together.
In conclusion, Norway's prosperity doesn't stop with their will for gritty cold adventure. They've scaled the South Pole, the icebergs, the glaciers, and the tundras. It's almost as if the ice keeps them warm. Stay tuned. Oman is coming up next.
The ice people up in Norway.
It's very interesting. Everything about this video like seemed pretty good, like a lot of good stuff. And the only thing I'm questioning is the food there.
It was a lot of various meats, fish, and random like seemingly pickled vegetables.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe it's good. Maybe we got to give it a chance. But visually, didn't look the most appetizing to us. Maybe there's another video we can check out about Norwegian food to change our minds here.
Let us know down in the comments. Maybe this was a bad representation, but thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.